Good day, everyone. Welcome to the lesson 3 of Module 1. By the way, this is the last lesson of Module 1. This is entitled Ancestral Domains, Cultural Integrity, and Indigenous Rights. The contents of this presentation starts with the introduction to Indigenous Rights Framework. Second, comprehensive analysis of ancestral domains. Third, preservation of cultural integrity. Fourth, rights and administrative governance. Fifth, peace building and disaster risk management. Sixth, experiential learning and policy evaluation. Let's start with the introduction. With the learning objectives, it defined the core functions. It analyzed the legal frameworks under the Republic Act number 8371 or the IPRA rights. The learning objectives, it evaluate the real-world course cases and propose sustainable actions. Let's have first the pre-lesson student engagement activities. It will activate prior knowledge and challenge existing preparation. Perception, we have the agree or disagree, and the word association with the terms, and still with the grouping activities. It promotes collaborative inquiry. We have the think, pair, share approach and explore the situational activities. Let's start. Next is the comprehensive analysis of ancestral domains. With the key concepts of traditional ownership, we have the collective ownership and responsibilities. Ancestral domains are generally held by the community collectively rather than by individuals, emphasizing shared rights and responsibilities concerning the protection, use, and management of the entire territory. We have here the acronym of ICC, or Indigenous Cultural Communities, possess the recognized right to manage and develop their lands, including forests, mountains, and coastal areas, in accordance with their traditions, priorities, and applicable laws. We have here the CADE, or the Certificate of Ancestral Domain title, wherein it serves as the formal legal document that recognizes and indigenous rights over its territory within the NCIP, playing a central role of the process. It will also have the protection of sacred rights with the traditional ownership, including the preservation of the burial grounds, sacred areas, and gathering places, which are vital components of communities' spiritual practices, and historical identity. We have another right. We have the prior and informed consent process. It ensures that indigenous communities are properly informed about the projects, their territories, allowing them to participate in decision making, and without any form of external pressure or coercion. And we have also the community approval and participation. This framework emphasizes the rights of the community to improve or reject activities, ensuring that development projects align with their cultural values and do not harm the traditional way of life. And it will also the protection and requiring alumni consent before the relevant activities undertake that serve as a safeguard against unwanted commercialization of resources and the destruction of cultural significant sites. And it have also the empowerment through self-governance. No, this is to govern their own territories and develop communities. Community priorments. They're active proportioning rather than beneficiaries' external programs. It also have the rights for the preservation of cultural integrity. And the major elements of indigenous culture, we have the protection of traditional rights, traditional knowledge and language, which involve the active preservation and continuous use of indigenous languages, alongside the protection of traditional knowledge regarding medicine, agriculture, and craft, ensuring this vital culture assets are transmitted effectively to younger generation, maintain community identity, and it has also the maintenance of customs and its spiritual practices. And we have also the major elements of indigenous culture. We have also the recognition of customary laws and institutions. And then this is a cultural integrity requires honoring traditional governance system and indigenous conflict resolution mechanism. And we have also the cultural appropriation and commercialization. We have the sacred rituals and traditional designs that are frequently exploited for tourist entertainment or commercial products without community consent. It must have with community consent. And the displacement and loss of ancestral domain, especially when there is a forced removal from traditional territories, poses a critical threat of the land of the indigenous people. And we have also the discrimination and the rapid social change. Like, for example, if they face systemic discrimination and pressures from popular culture, it can also lead to the loss of native languages among the youth. And then we have the rights and administrative governance. We have here under the Republic Act number 8371 or the IPRA rights of the indigenous peoples. This is established, this is really the law, the commission, and it was also established in the year 1997. Okay, again, we have also the CATI. This is for the ancestral land and domains. And we have also the policy implementers. Who are those? We have the DepEd, the DNR, excluding the CHED, and that's also part of the curriculum. And we have here the historical transition of the development of the administrative agencies that long before, no, it was the Bureau of the Non-Christian Tribes, which focused on the integration and assimilation towards the framework that recognizes inherent rights and autonomies of the indigenous population. And it's also the influence of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which provided the foundation of the mandates and recognition of the indigenous cultural communities. And we have here the historical development. So it started with the legislative milestone of 1997, which was the enactment of the IPRA or Indigenous People Rights Act. Now, it's marked at a significant turning point, moving administrative focus from simple social welfare to comprehensive right-based. And we have also the modern right-based governance. And we have also the peace building and disaster risk management and the indigenous systems of conflict resolution. Now, we have the traditional mediation and leadership, and we have the leaders. No, the traditional elders and leaders serve as the central mediators who to utilize their authority to facilitate dialogue, build trust to all members of the tribe. And we have also the customary laws and social balance. Now, if there are disputes, of course, again, the leaders, we have example, the dak on the bahay. It depends on what do we call for their leaders. And we have also, in terms of conflict resolution, you have the so-called restorative justice and reconciliation. Now, this system emphasizes the restorative approaches. The approaches are apologies, forgiveness, compensation, rebuild relationship. We have also the rituals and ceremonies that can offer or employ their formalized reconciliation, and it can be a long-term community healing. And if there is also a conflict resolution, you have also the so-called oral traditions and cultural communication. And we have also the integration of environmental knowledge, collective actions, and social cohesion. And we have also the community resilience and disaster strategies. Now it has for including the disaster and how what are the strategies. No, we have also culture sensitive disaster response. No, it they have also the effective disaster response. Now involving the formal emergency planning, ensuring that responses respect local customs, protect sacred cultural heritage, especially there are places that what we're gonna do if there are disasters and calamities and emergencies. And this is also for the protection of the ancestral livelihood. That's correct. Okay, especially the natural resources, the buildings, the trees, the woods, or any they have as a source of livelihood. Okay, so at this point of time, we have also the policy evaluation as part of the module output. This is part of the policy review and the effectiveness assessment. This is one of the performance tasks that the students must do. So we have, like for example, the participation focus. Actually, this is part of checking or analyzing the implementation gaps, no, especially of the lack of the agency coordination, the barriers, and the rights-based impact us. And we have no so-called the Peace Action Project. We have the digital advocacy and infographics. Ito lang gagawin natin, no? Mga infographics or posters. What we're gonna do with this to have this Peace Action Project implementation. And especially that this project is designed to advocate the respect of customary laws, traditions, governance, and the protection of the sacred rights. And this is also a key term we have here, the IKS, no? It means indigenous knowledge system. So the knowledge of the traditions, of the tribe, the leaders. So we have also the community-based peace initiatives. This is the project of the classroom. No such intercultural dialogues or conflict resolution workshop that can do in the classroom setting. So we will find out what we can do in the classroom setting, no, in the month of November. Maybe we can invite Dato for this activity. I-provide na nato ilang mga pamasahe and the token, certificates and other awards and the meals. And we have also the Peace Action Project implementation. Now, this project emphasizes the importance of balancing economic progress with the environmental stewardship practiced by indigenous peoples. So, as students, we can propose actions that support sustainable development while ensuring the cultural identity and social territories of the communities remain protected and intact. So that's all the presentation, everyone. Hope you read and enjoy the topic of the entire Module 1 and see you also for Module 2.